Hi, and a warm welcome to Whisky Sisters, the podcast. I am Jennifer Rose.
And I am Inka Larissa.
Together we are
Whisky Sisters.
We would love you to join our weekly adventures. Come on, let us rock your whisky world. There'll be lots of news, gossip, bottle releases, and we will be raising our glasses through the tastiest of drams.
We'll be hosting expert guests, hitting the road, and visiting some of the distilleries near you. And let's not forget dropping in some cheeky whiskey facts. Join our whiskey journey.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, Whisky Sister Inka. Did you have lovely New Year's Eve celebrations?
Yes, we did in Florence. It was good fun. Good fun.
Oh my goodness, that sounds gorgeous.
I have to admit, I didn't drink any whiskey.
Sometimes a wee bit respite. Were you on the Negronis or was it a collective of other beverages?
Oh, I was on tequila, mezcal, lots of shots. I don't even know what's in it.
Fantastic.
Lots of this.
And do you have any New Year's resolutions? Are you the kind of person that makes them?
I had one, but I can't even remember it now. You put me on the spot. Nothing too exciting. I guess just do well with the Whisky Sisters, continue with the whiskey journey.
Whisky podcast world domination in our own clothing line.
Oh, yeah, merch.
I had a very Scottish hogmanay New Year's Eve with a piper. We went out for food and everything, and there was a little bit of whiskey drunk. Yeah, so it was a nice way to start the year.
Sounds good. In this week's episode, we will be focusing on whiskey and music, and who better to join us than Vic Galloway, veteran BBC broadcaster, journalist, musician, and whiskey enthusiast. In fact, you may have heard us talking to Vic before as we visited the Scots Malt Whisky Society in Leith last year and guested on his podcast Whisky Talk, Malts and Music back in September.
Oh, that was a great day, Inka, wasn't it?
Oh, so much fun.
So you pair 4 of the Whisky Society's cast strength drams with songs of your choice. We just loved it, eh?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah, lots of drams.
Excuse my voice, by the way. I've had a bit of a and it's not quite healed.
Yeah, you need more whiskey.
Indeed.
You know, like singers do, they put honey in the whiskey and then like gargle with the
Yeah, I was having some toddies, but I don't know if I was giving it enough time to heal the throat because I was just throwing them back. We'll be exploring whiskies released in collaboration with musicians. However, before we do, it's time to keep up to date with the very first whiskey news of 2023.
Stick your nose in it.
B Corp certified Bruichladdich distillery has revealed a mural in Shoreditch, East London, which has been coated with a pollution-eating polish. The mural has been designed to improve air quality. It uses a polish that purifies air by using energy from natural sunlight to break down harmful pollutants and odor molecules. It is said that 1 coated square meter can take out 2 grams of nitric oxide per day. Located at 26 Red Church Street, Bruichladdich mural is 70 meters squared. This equates to an estimated pollution reversal of more than 700 cars.
Whoa, I've never heard of anything like that, have you?
I know, and it looks really nice. I saw a picture of it.
I was just going to ask you that. Is it their nice, like, turquoisey colours?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's so pretty, isn't it? Scientists are working on bringing whiskey flavours from the early 19th century back into production. Researchers at Heriot-Watt University in Edinburgh are testing how the crops that were common back then respond to modern processing methods. Over the next 6 years, they plan to test at least 8 heritage barley varieties. They want to find out whether old species of barley could create distinctive, new, yet old whiskies. The team hopes the research will create single malts for Edinburgh's Holyrood distillery. Mark Watson, head of spirits operations at Holyrood Distillery, said, "We think there are clear sensory differences with using heritage barleys, but we wanted to back it up with science. It's using innovation to bring back characteristics that have been lost by switching to newer varieties of barley, flavours and aromas that haven't been present in whiskey for decades, if not longer."
Yeah, that's similar to basically what Waterford was doing with the recent release Hunter.
Yeah.
Because they're obviously looking into those as well. And I think they have quite a few new ones coming up that they've been growing. People are not always sure about the terroir aspect. So it's kind of nice to see that actually other distilleries are doing it and even like putting money into this research.
Yeah, definitely.
There's definitely something there, terroir.
Ye oldie barley.
Let's rock.
We have previously discussed the strong links between music and whiskey when we met with Rob Dietrich on the podcast and sampled Blackened American Whiskey, which is a collaboration with Metallica. For anyone that hasn't checked out that episode yet, have a listen and let us know what you think of the unique technique of black noise sonic enhancement.
Yeah, that was so fascinating. However, Metallica aren't the only heavy metal musicians with whiskey links. I don't know if any other musicians have as strong links as Metallica. Correct me, listeners, if I'm wrong. But anyway, let's have a look at some more musical malt collaborations. The band GWAR. Do you just say it like the letters like that? Or
I don't know.
do you go
Gwar.
Gwar? Gwar. I don't even know. I should have Googled this pronunciation. Well, listeners, the band Gwar, or GWAR, who released Ragnarok Rye, 46% ABV with collaborator Kictonin Creek. It's 100% rye whiskey, finished with sugar maple and cherry wood. There seems to be some availability of this, albeit it seems a bit limited. They look a bit scary to me. They're very heavy looking.
Well, I guess it makes sense that they have rye, which is a little bit stronger in flavor, spicier. So maybe, who knows? So then there's Slipknot, and they released number 9 Iowa whiskey, 45% ABV with collaborator Cedar Ridge. It is blend of 60% straight bourbon, 74% corn, 14% malt rye, and 12% two-row malted barley, and 40% straight rye, aged for 3 to 4 years. Both the number 9 Iowa whiskey and number 9 Reserve seems to be fairly widely available.
Do you like Slipknot?
No.
Neither do I.
Again, I find them kind of scary.
They're scary with the clown. They're terrifying. So
Exactly.
I'm terrified of their whiskey. I'm not even going to try it.
Yeah, I don't think I was either.
The band Anthrax teamed up with Hill Rock Estate and collaborated on some special releases, Evil Twin 1 and 2. Evil Twin 1 was a single barrel double cask rye bottled at a hefty 60.05%. It was a 100% rye whiskey, first aged in new number 3 char American oak barrels and then moved to new number 4 char American oak barrels. As far as I can see, their first release, The Healer, and their 40th anniversary limited edition Anthrax XL were also super limited releases and all sold out. So it sounds like that was maybe for collectors or, mad Anthrax fans to get their hands on. But thought it would be worth mentioning them.
Yeah, and loads of obviously collaborating with loads of American distilleries.
Yeah.
Or American brands.
Yeah, heavy on the rye.
Yeah. Well, also the legendary Motorhead have collaborated with McMurray Distillery, as have another band that we will be sampling soon with Vic, actually. So it's a Swedish single malt whiskey bottled at 40% ABV, aged 5 years in new American oak barrels, and a small portion of whiskey is finished in Oloroso oak barrels. There's actually another Motorhead whiskey. They have released Iron Fest American whiskey, bottled at 40% ABV from Indiana. This one is recommended as a blending whiskey in drinks. Life is less painful with Motorhead whiskey, Lemmy said. I may consider having a sip now and then, but unfortunately he passed away only a few months after it was launched.
Oh, R.I.P. Lemmy, the legend.
And only a few weeks after the death of Lemmy, whose preferred drink was Jack and Coke, Jack Daniels announced honoring Motorhead's 40 years with a single barrel that had previously only been available to their master distiller, describing as dark, oaky, but still some corn and sweetness with the signature Jack smooth charcoal smoky finish. The 288 bottles produced sold out almost instantly.
Yeah, I can imagine they would just have flown off the shelves.
Yeah, well, obviously JD is very popular, and obviously, you know, it's a good like memory.
Yeah, totally memorabilia. See, the
Yeah.
whiskey fan in me wants to open every bottle I get, but something like that, I guess you would kind of think you should keep it as well. So there's loads of this commemoration malarkey going on, which I think differs hugely from Metallica's, you know, having their own blackened brand and being invested in that. But to commemorate the Rolling Stones' 50th anniversary in 2012, Japan's Suntory Group created a unique whiskey. They took already existing whiskies they had made in years pertaining to momentous dates in the band's history, such as their 1962 founding, the release of Exile on Main Street, and their first visit to Japan, and blended them together, which I think is quite lovely.
Yeah.
Only 150 bottles, moulded with the Stones' famous logo, that tongue and lips. So, and they were made with a whopping retail price of $6,300. So it seems like a lot of these releases you would need to be super quick off the mark. I wonder whether most of the buyers are motivated for their love of the bands or the musicians, or for the whiskey itself, or maybe both.
Yeah, I would think it's like super fans will buy things like that, and probably might not even like whiskey, but are just super fans.
Exactly. I think in some ways it makes me think I have a bias. I think that some of that whiskies, you know, collaborated with the bands. I imagine, I don't know, I just think it might be a bit crappy, but they've just like somebody in the marketing department's teamed up. I hope I'm wrong.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, because with a lot of, I've written an article before about all these celeb spirit brands, like just anything like beyond whiskey as well.
Like they're whapping their names to it.
Yeah, and obviously it's a massive marketing gimmick, but then lots of times they fall short, and also because they're producing like huge quantities, you know, in collaboration with like Diageo or whatever, like it's massive. So then the spirit might not be as good. There are actually, many other artists and musicians who have released whiskies, including Drake, Willie Nelson, and the Pogues.
Whisky Sisters!
Today, in our catch up with Vic, we will feature 3 music-related whiskies, and hopefully we will be pleasantly surprised. The Scorpions' rock and roll star Macmira Swedish Whisky, Bob Dylan's Heaven's Door, a Tennesse Bourbon, and Rammstein's Irish Whisky.
Although for many listeners, he will need no introduction. Vic Galloway is a BBC radio broadcaster and TV presenter whose radio programs have been broadcast for more than 23 years. Amazing. On Radio 1, Radio Scotland, and Six Music. He has covered music festivals including Tea in the Park, Connect, and South by Southwest. Other music shows and documentaries for BBC One and BBC Two. His music journalism has appeared in several publications, including The Times and The Herald. Vic is also the author of Songs in the Key of Five and Rip It, the story of Scottish pop. He's well known for introducing new and emerging music, plays in his own band, Check Masses, and of course he hosts Whisky Talk, Malts and Music with the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, so he's very, very busy and just done loads of stuff.
Totally. What a career groin slap that is.
Living the life.
Lucky bastard.
I know.
Vic Galloway.
It's great to have you on the Whisky Sisters podcast, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
You have an amazing career in broadcasting, which we would love to hear more about. However, we wanted to start by asking you about your love of whiskey and your whiskey journey. How did you go into it?
Well, I've liked really nice single malt whiskey for a good few years. I couldn't tell you how long exactly, 20 years or something like that. And probably the first kind of really good malts I had were Glenmorangie and Glenfiddich. I think they were the two malts that seemed to get on the market first. So maybe 20 odd years ago, maybe even longer ago. I mean, I'm old, girls. Let me just tell you that. Yeah, so I sort of started enjoying them, and then of course like most whiskey drinkers who are inquisitive, I found the peaty guys, Lagavulin, Laphroaig, Ardbeg, etc., and fell deeply in love with them. I think, that kind of medicinal TCP, heavily peated kind of flavor thing, it just blows your mind initially, and that's all you want to drink. And I think I've sort of gone over that hill a bit now. I still love a really peaty whiskey, but it's just there's a time and a place for it now rather than my drink of choice. So that's how I first started getting into malts. And then more recently, the Scotch Malt Whisky Society got in touch with me. They said, we've got our 12 flavour profiles and we'd quite like you to do something with music. And they weren't entirely sure what they wanted. And so with a bit of to and fro and back and forward, I sort of said, well, why don't I pair each flavour profile with a genre of music and then make you a little playlist of 4 tracks for each genre. And then I'll write a blurb about each one as well. So I did all of that and they loved it. And it went down really well with their kind of, members and all that sort of stuff. It was in their magazine and it was online and so on. And I obviously had been to the Whisky Society a few times as a guest of friends, but I wasn't specifically a member, and I hadn't really investigated those cask strength whiskies in such depth before. So it just blew my mind. And the more I go into the Whisky Society stuff, find out more about the differences between lowlands and highlands and Speysides and Islas and so on, the more my journey becomes more enthralling, I suppose, and I get deeper into it and I enjoy it more and more. And I would never say I'm an expert in whiskey in any way, shape or form, but I'm starting to know a bit more and more about it. And so I'm a nerd when it comes to music. So I'm slowly but surely becoming more of a nerd about whiskey as well.
I love the society, and I've kind of had similar experiences with them. When I first got into whiskey, they were really helpful, and I always learn something new when I go and visit them or do any work with them. And obviously, because it's all cask strength, I find now that if I drink whiskeys that are 40%, 42, I'm like, oh, this is not really good. Like, you don't get much out of it.
Exactly. It's exactly the same for me. I'll buy a bottle of malt from a off-license, a supermarket, wherever it may be, and it's 46%. All that whiskey. I don't know what I've got up there at the moment. I've got a sort of shelf of Whisky Society bottles. A couple I've got on the go at the moment are like 60, I think one's 66.9%. I mean, that's nuts. And another one's about 58, 59%. So, I mean, they're considerably stronger. But just because they've got, high alcohol content doesn't mean that they're not flavoursome as well. That's another thing. The flavours are really deep with these cask strength. And so now I was at the Edinburgh Whisky Festival in Summerhall, and a friend of mine had a ticket for that and took me along. And I was getting the cask strength stuff from under the table. So I tried the drams, the official drams, and they're like, oh, do you like that? Do you want to taste the unfiltered one from under the table? And that completely blew my mind as well. So many good flavors. But yeah, I'm hooked on the cask strength stuff now. And, obviously, if you become a member of the Whisky Society, you've got the opportunity to get those whiskies first before anyone else. And they only have limited runs of everything as well. So it is a real whiskey nerds club, the Scotch Malt Whisky Society.
We had good fun pairing our whiskies with the songs a while ago when we came to see you, so that was definitely good fun.
Great fun. So I mean, on the back of the pairing up the 12 flavor profiles, I then turned to the Whisky Society and said, have you ever thought about doing a podcast where you match whiskey and music? And they said no. And I said, do you want one? They said yes, and we've been making them ever since. I've just interviewed Sam Huchen from Outlander, so that will be the next episode that will go out in, I'm not sure, January or February next year. What a gent he is. He's an absolutely lovely guy. And total Don, a really, really nice guy. I mean, he paired up some great music with some great whiskies. We even tried one of his Sassenach whiskey, his blend, which is really tasty, by the way. So yeah, and we've done you guys, obviously. You were fantastic guests. We've had Ian Rankin, we've had Val McDermott, Justin Curry from Delamitri, Norman Blake from Teenage Fan Club, all sorts of different people. So musicians, authors, broadcasters, and now obviously Big Sam.
One of the things I love about your podcast is the different ways that your guests connect into the brief of pairing the music with the malts, and they do it in different ways, some through memory, some find it quite obscure, a concept at first, but often what I've heard is, people, even if they find it a little bit tricky at first, kind of getting right into it by the end of the episode.
Absolutely, yeah. And like Sam really rose to the challenge. He loved it. And yes, I mean, Karine Polwart, who's an amazing singer-songwriter from Scotland, and she paired them with, the whiskies to songs, but also place, played a huge role in it as well. So where she was listening to the music, where she was drinking the whiskey, all of that fed into it. And that was an angle which no one else had really talked about that much. A little bit, but not that much. So that was really interesting. Yeah, everyone's different, and everyone has a different palate, and everyone has, they prefer one thing over another. They've obviously got different tastes in music as well. So you get completely different choices of music. And there's now a Spotify playlist online where we compile all the guests' music choices into a massive long playlist, and that's pretty eclectic. It goes from sort of folky stuff through to heavy rock, through to electronic music, world music. It's really interesting. Hopefully we'll do many more and other whiskey adventures in 2023 and beyond.
Definitely.
Dram on fire.
We were saying earlier, the cask strength is absolutely where it's at. The first whiskey this evening, certainly not cask strength. So we have a collaboration between the German rock band The Scorpions and Mackmyra Swedish whiskey, and it's called Rock and Roll Star, bottled at 40% ABV. The whiskey's matured in American ex-bourbon barrels, Oloroso sherry casks, and finished in German sweet cherry wine casks.
Wow, okay. I'm expecting this one to be pretty sweet then, in general.
I'm not too sure because I'm relying on you guys with the nosing and the tasting notes, because I'm, like, as you can probably hear, a little bit choked up just now.
Yeah, you sent me these drams in advance, and I have not tasted them, so I have no idea what any of the whiskies that we're going to drink today, what they taste like or smell like or anything. So I poured out a bit of this, what is it called? Rock and Roll Star, is it?
Rock and Roll Star.
Yeah, okay.
Are you a fan of the Scorpions?
I played Rock You Like a Hurricane in a school band.
Yes.
So I can still play the riff for that one. As a general rule, I probably would have to say I'm not a massive fan, but I respect them. Michael and Rudy Schenker, amazing guitar players.
Yep.
And you can't deny Winds of Change. I mean,
nobody come for that.
that's an epic. Isn't that the kind of European Union anthem or something like that?
Classic. That would bring a tear to a glass eye.
Exactly. And I just love, it's that in between song stuff when the Scorpions, if you listen to a live album, because they're German and their English is absolutely superb, but they've got a slight German accent. So it's like, are you gonna have some fun tonight? Or this kind of stuff on stage. And it's just kind of,
fantastic.
Come on, put a can. So it's ridiculous. Yeah, so I find them vaguely ridiculous, but I respect them massively. The nose on this, fairly nondescript, actually. There's a little bit of sweetness as initially, but it's
it needs a little bit of time. I was getting a lot of those Amarena cherries.
Yeah, I'm going to
I don't know if it's just because that it's been in a cherry cask. Cherry, not sherry. So yeah.
Oh, wow,
yeah.
Okay.
It's very sherried on the nose. I think some caramel in there, but it's not super intense. Like, it's hard to find.
Do you know what I would say is, even though the strength of it is only 40%, it's quite alcohol, on the nose and on the palate.
Yeah, I was thinking there's kind of initial spicy oak when you try it on the palate, and then plenty of sour cherries, and I was thinking those tangy Haribos.
Oh yeah,
I can definitely hear you on the tang. I've got it quite perfumey and a little bit musky in the nose, wee bit golden syrup. I've got a kind of white pepper spice in the palate, but floral perfumey and quite bitter fruits.
Yeah, it's weird because if it's had all this sherry treatment, you'd expect it to be a much sweeter whiskey, and I would have thought the color would be a little darker. It's quite a sort of pale yellow. I'm definitely getting bits of oak. I'm getting that pepper on the palate, definitely. I'm just sort of seeing because often a nose of a whiskey can develop the more you drink it. You go back to it and it smells slightly different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to lie, it's not the greatest whiskey I've ever tasted.
It's disappointing you because I do quite like the band, so I wanted to be a bit more rock and roll.
If you're going to call your whiskey Rock and Roll Star.
But maybe it's a bit more like glam rock, kind of a bit more, sweet cherries. But I was thinking also those raspberries, the boiled sweets that come in a round tin that they have like different, car sweets, different fruit ones. So really like those raspberry ones.
I am getting the nose is becoming a lot sweeter as I sort of go further down the dram. I'm just sort of starting to get the more, complex flavors from it now.
I would agree, more sweetness with the ear getting into being in the glass for a little bit longer. flavour. I'm totally with you, Inka. I really like the band. Huge nostalgia for especially 1980 Scorpions. So I wanted to like it more. I was rooting more for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And especially with Macmurra Distillery, they
Yeah.
do some really good stuff. So
Yeah, is that the distillery, is it?
yeah, Macmurra.
It's not
Yeah.
offending my palate, but I'm certainly not excited about buying a bottle of it.
No, if I was given a dram of this in a bar, I would be quite happy just to, sip away, neck it, and then move on to something with a bit more flavour.
Well
Neck it.
said, Vic.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like, with no disrespect, because as I say, that even though the Scorpions maybe not my favorite band of all time, I have huge respect for them, and the idea that they bring out a whiskey called Rock and Roll Star, it's just daft. So yeah, good on them, but not totally blown away.
Yeah. We can try all of them and then maybe come back and just do a little final.
Yeah.
See how it goes. So you've met some musical greats in your broadcasting career, including Metallica, Blondie, Alice Cooper, John Lydon. So we were wondering if you have any rock and roll or backstage whiskey bourbon stories, something cool that you could share with us.
Do you know what? Actually, you put me on the spot. I have interviewed all of those people. Metallica got us. They enjoyed the interview so much that they invited us to watch them from the side of the stage, which was really cool.
So cool.
So Rob Trujillo, the newest bass player, had just joined, so we were like about a meter or two away from him on stage.
My goodness,
Yeah,
he
and
seems
right
such
next to
a
the
gentleman.
Yeah, he is. They were all lovely. When we interviewed them, it was Kirk Hammett and James Hetfield. I've got a picture somewhere, a photo, and just before we were going to do the photo, I looked around at them, and they were kind of smiling with their hands by their sides, and I was like, wait, you're Metallica. I want to see some metal. So what we actually got was Hetfield doing the devil's horns, and his famous teethy smile, kind of thing.
Amazing.
It was great. I've been very, very fortunate with my broadcasting career. I'm always the independent left field punk rock indie guy, I suppose. Although I play a massive cross section of different kinds of music, I'm a more left field evening time radio guy. And over 23 years of broadcasting every week, firstly on Radio 1, then on Radio Scotland, and also time to time on Six Music and the World Service and all sorts of different things. And I've met lots of people, and I've got drunk with a few of them, but none specifically come to mind in terms of whiskey or bourbon. That may change, though. I mean, obviously, doing the podcast, I remember, I don't want to kiss and tell here, but I remember after the Justin Curry podcast, we stayed in the Whisky Society and had several more, and that included many, many drams and also a good few beers into the mix as well. And I'm not going to say what happened, but it got a bit crazy. It got a bit wild. So that was good fun. As I say, you can't kiss and tell. What happens on the road stays on the road.
Yeah.
I can't really say any of the really juicy stuff because this is going out in a podcast. Yeah. I'll tell you when I next see you and we're sharing a dram and there's nothing recording me. I'll tell you some of the crazy stuff.
We'll
that's
step
happened.
away from the recording gear and you can spill the whiskey tea.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cannot wait.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, and from the biggest stars, Marianne Faithfull, Mickey Dolenz from the Monkees, as you say, Metallica, Blondie, etc., through to many local bands, and also I've got to meet some of my personal heroes. You mentioned John Lydon. I did a documentary on the Damned. They were the first band I ever saw live, so that was just like my teenage self just about exploded when I got that one commissioned. Yeah, so it's been a brilliant ride so far. Long may it continue.
Yeah,
and now you've added whiskey in. Talk about killing it.
Yeah, I was saying that to someone the other day. I was like, I've started doing these podcasts with the Whisky Society. They just stopped and said, oh my God, Vic, what a career you've had. And of course, everyone moans about their own lot in life every now and again. And you sort of, I wish I was doing more of this and less of that. And, I wish this was happening and that wasn't happening. But then sometimes you just have to take a step back and go, I'm so super lucky.
For sure.
And I do thank my lucky stars. And long may it continue, as I say.
Living the dream. So the next dram is Bob Dylan's Heaven's Door, and I actually saw that Bob Dylan was trending on Twitter because he had said that one of his favorite TV shows is Coronation Street.
Yeah, I saw that. That's got to be bullshit, surely, right? No.
I know. They said that he could do an appearance on the show, so we'll see. Heaven's Door is a Tennessee bourbon and is a collaboration between Mark Bruichladdich, who has also helped to create the Angel's Envy bourbon. And this expression is made from 30% of small grains, which I had to Google, and it means sweet oats, barley, or rice. So we don't really know what's in there. And then I don't know what the 70% is. I was pretty sure it was corn, but yeah, they don't really tell much. And the spirit is allowed to age for at least 6 years in American oak barrels and bottled at 42% ABV. So we're going a little bit higher on the ABVs.
I don't know bourbon quite so well. I've had, the usual Jack Daniels and Bullets and Wild Turkey and, all the sort of Maker's Mark and, some really good ones and some less good ones. I don't know too much about it, but I'm not against bourbon. Usually it goes with, Coca-Cola and there's a rock band in front of me while I'm drinking it.
We did an episode a couple of weeks ago, Vic, on American whiskey, and we were just saying similarly, don't have a huge amount of experience, but curious, forever curious.
Certainly on the nose straight away, it's got more character than the Scorpions one.
Funny, the color is actually quite rusty, ambery color, which is quite surprising. I guess it comes from a lot from the toasting and the char of the virgin oak. Yeah, the nose is it's almost smoky. Like definitely you can get that toast.
Yeah.
Funny you say that. I've got the creme brulee when it's like burnt on the top, on the nose.
Oh. Creme brulee, one of my favorites.
Yeah, I was getting some licorice in there as well. There's something fruity in there as well, but I couldn't really tell what it is.
I'm getting a bit of fruit on the nose as well, and some of that smokiness. Oh, wow. It's funny, like the complete change of taste from that Scorpions one.
Yeah, and it does kind of feel stronger than 42.
Yeah, it definitely does. It's got a strange taste, doesn't it? It's not whiskey as we know it, is it? It's definitely bourbon whiskey.
I'm glad to hear you say this because I wasn't sure if it was my croaky throat tasting notes, but I found it quite unusual. I've got zingy spice, kind of aniseedy, maybe fresh apples, but I was kind of unsure and I was expecting something sweeter and creamier.
No, it's quite tangy. I'm getting a real floral taste in the middle of my mouth, like almost like that kind of synthetic Parma violets type.
Good call.
Yeah, I'm getting that when I drink it right in the middle of my mouth. I'm getting a little bit of smoke and sweetness on the nose and fruitiness, but then this kind of odd floral. Again, it's quite alcohol driven, this.
I wonder if there's a bit more rye in this. But I was getting spices like cumin and star anise, maybe. Quite rubbery. Like I was literally thinking like rubber bands or balloons or something.
Yeah.
I prefer it on the nose to the palate. It's not ringing my bell on the palate.
If someone gave me one of these in a bar, I would actually want to have a mixer with it. This is not doing it for me either, I'm afraid. It's drinkable, but not much more than that.
Standing down from that is not a bad shout. The name is, of course, a reference to his song Knocking on Heaven's Door.
Knocking on Heaven's Door. Yeah.
Are you a fan of Bob Dylan?
Do you know what? Music fans and friends of mine will hate me for saying this, but no, I'm not. I appreciate his songwriting and his lyric writing, and the cliche that people always say is, I like his songs covered by other people.
Yeah.
I love the Byrds versions of his songs more than him. But like some of my real kind of nerdy music friends who love him, they say you just haven't found him yet. You probably need to find one record as an entry point, fall in love with that, and then you'll love all the others. But no, he just sounds like a chainsaw starting up to me. I've never really completely got it. But I have to say, he used to do a radio show for the BBC, and I think it's on NPR in the States as well. Bob Dylan's Theme Time Radio Hour or whatever it was called. I was once driving back for Christmas, a bit like Chris Rea. I was driving and I turned on the radio and it was Bob Dylan's Christmas themed radio hour, and he was like playing amazing records, loads of old R&B, rock and roll, ska, country, bluegrass, Cajun music, really great music choices, but they all had a kind of festive twist to them, and I just fell in love with him. I just thought he was funny. I thought he had great taste. He didn't take himself too seriously. That was a real kind of epiphany for me. I'm still not completely found his music. How about yourselves? Do you like him?
I don't. I prefer like some covers, but I know that his songwriting is like highly rated, but I would never like put on Bob Dylan if I was listening to music myself.
I don't really listen to him. Like you might hear something on the radio sometimes and stuff and kind of like sing along because all this, like a lot of the songs basically.
Yeah.
Subterranean Homesick Blues. That's an amazing song. Johnny's in the basement mixing up the medicine. I'm I'm on the pavement, think about the girl. It's almost like proto rap or something, you know. It's like he fires at the lyrics to that one. I mean, there are loads of good Bob Dylan songs. There's one that I've just mentioned that I do like. I've just not got it with Dylan, and I'm not really liking his whiskey either.
I'm quite intrigued by him as a character. I was recently in an art shop and there was loads of paintings, very colourful painting, hugely expensive actually, by Bob Dylan. So I just thought there's a lot going on for him. So I'm a bit intrigued by him, not a fan, and I'm a bit disappointed by his whiskey.
Yeah, and I found a song earlier today. I was listening, so I'm just trying to get into the mood of, music and whiskey. And I found a song with him and Johnny Cash, and it's called Wanted Man.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, like, okay, yeah, this will be good. Oh my God, it was the worst.
Oh, was it? Yeah.
It was so bad.
He's obviously hugely one of the most successful recording artists of all time, but no, it doesn't do it for me. And I don't think I can finish this dram. And that you will not hear Vic Galloway say that very often.
We said we would send you music-related whiskey. We did not say they were going to be good whiskies, okay?
Right.
We're hoping that the last one will be the winner.
Well, need more than thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
Vic, what's your opinion on musicians or bands releasing their own whiskies? What do you think about that?
Why not? Yeah, I'm into it. And there's another thing that musicians keep doing is either like bringing out a whiskey or a gin or a kind of something boozy, or they do hot sauce. The amount of bands that have got their own hot sauces now. I mean, it's bizarre. It was like, well, I suppose it was like Paul Newman. He's the actor. He brought out salad dressings. And what kind of a person lives in a house like this?
Lloyd Grossman.
Lloyd Grossman. Yeah, he started a food range as well. And it seems to be all the rage now. It's like you can hardly walk down a supermarket aisle without seeing, bands and actors and so on. Why not? As long as the product's good, it's just another way to, I suppose, get some cool points, make some money. Obviously, that's probably what they're really doing it for.
Have you tried the Metallica one? Because the Metallica's blackened whiskey, that was really nice.
Yeah.
So good.
No, I've not tried it.
The setup's slightly different for them, I think, as opposed to maybe a band doing a kind of temporary collaboration with a distillery. They've got their own brand and
easy sipping. It was very easy sipping. They also have the Rye the Lightning, which is then obviously rye. So the other one is more corn.
Okay, right. Rye.
Yeah.
Yeah, look what they did there. Okay, so we're going to go in. Are we going in for the third one then?
Yes, we're going into our final whiskey, an Irish whiskey released by German industrial metal band Rammstein. So an Irish whiskey, however, it's not specified which distillery. It's a blend of triple distilled grain and a double distilled malt aged for 10 years in ex-bourbon casks and finished for a minimum of 6 months in ex-sherry casks and bottled at 43% ABV.
Rammstein with a whiskey. You'd have thought that Rammstein would bring out, kind of rubber lederhosen or something instead. You know what I mean? I don't have any Rammstein stories really particularly, but I was once doing a Radio 1 show in Maida Vale, BBC Radio 1, and Placebo were the live band on the show. They turned out to be super nice. I'd heard Brian Molko could be a bit difficult, but he wasn't at all. He was lovely. And then I sort of said, you tour the world constantly, you're always playing festivals and so on. There must be one or two bands that you keep bumping into and you've become friends with on the road. Rammstein are the band that we keep bumping into and having parties with and getting on like a house on fire. And he says that they've obviously got a ridiculous sense of humour.
They've gone for a whiskey. It was quite hard to get in the UK.
The nose is the best yet. That is definitely the best yet.
Very light yellow in the colour, but the nose is much sweeter, like vanilla, some cinnamon, some festive spices in there.
Yeah.
I also had some like leather, and I was thinking, all the leather outfits, like
leather pants.
I think their outfits are quite scary. In fact, I find the band quite scary, if I'm honest. They're too much.
I think it's
for
done
me.
in jest, though. I think it's done in humour. I don't think don't be scared by them. I think they're taking the piss basically most of the time.
I'm still scared.
I've never seen them live, and people always say that that's the best thing. I mean, their records are one thing, but see them live, I think it gets pretty blue live, if you know what I mean. I think they push the boundaries of what's tasteful and what isn't.
Yeah, I've heard they have like sort of inflatable sort of body parts and things like that.
Penises. Is that what you wanted to say, Jen?
They do.
Am I allowed to say? I think the nose on this is really nice. I'm definitely getting the vanilla, little bits of like spice, but not that kind of acrid, punchy spice that you can get, like punchy spice to it. Whereas this is much more, as you say, cinnamon. And come on, Rammstein, make sure this is a good whiskey. I want this one to be good.
I'm even getting like doused. It's a doused match, like on the nose. Weird.
Oh, it's not very nice though, is it? Have you just invited me on this podcast to try out the worst whiskey known to man or something like? I will get Galloway on. He'll drink anything.
I found it quite difficult on the palate. Very white peppery, quite floraled, perfumey, and again quite bitter fruits.
Yeah, I think it was quite oaky, and I was getting red fruits like red currants. There's definitely some vanilla on the finish and some spice, but it's not really like, I think it's actually a little bit better now that it's been in the glass for a while, but it's still not that exciting.
Yeah, I'm sort of having a bit of difficulty with this one. Much like the Bob Dylan one, I might be able to finish this one. I'm not sure. I think out of the three so far, I think the Scorpions is probably edging it. I actually think the finish on this is quite nice. The nose is nice and the finish is nice, but unfortunately the palate isn't that nice, and that's the bit that really counts, isn't it?
I think definitely with the air, it's getting
Jen,
sweeter.
you're not enjoying this.
No, I'm not. I think it's rotten.
How disappointing. I feel like we should have had something good to finish off.
Furniture polish, cleaning product kind of. Yeah, I mean, saying that someone's whiskey tastes like cleaning products is not good. So I apologize. And maybe someone else out there will love it, but I'm not digging this.
I would have hoped their whiskey to be, well, I don't know why they went with this. Like, it should have been peated and a bit more aggressive and like strong on the palate.
When I was doing my pairings for the Whisky Society and doing those 12 flavor profiles with 12 music genres, as the flavor profiles got more peated, because they've got, lightly peated, heavily peated, the music just got heavier. So I did my last heavily peated was like heavy rock, that was the kind of, Queens of the Stone Age, etc., went really well with that, I thought. So I was expecting the Rammstein one and maybe even the Scorpions one to be just that little bit heavier in taste, and it's got quite a nice finish to it. This, I want to say something positive about it. Sweet vanilla nose, cleaning products on the palate, and this kind of nice warm finish as well. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry, Rammstein, it's rotten.
No, it's not working. I think I'm just noticing the Scorpions again, and the nose is actually much more pleasant. And like, I guess after those two, I'm like, actually, this smells nice.
What have you been drinking recently that you've really liked then?
The Glasgow Distillery 1770. They have some really amazing cask finishes, like the peated Satanus. I bought the tequila cask finish, which is really nice. If you like tequila, it's amazing.
I do.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it. It's not for everyone because it does taste a lot like tequila.
A good friend of mine in London, I was staying with him a few months ago, and I took him down a bottle of cask strength stuff from the Whisky Society, and it was a Caolila, one of their limited edition sort of bottlings, 200 bottles or something like that. And he loved it. He said it was maybe the best whiskey he'd ever tasted in his entire life. And he likes the really peated, heavily peated, but he said there was something really unique about it. And I remember him saying it's almost like a really, really top of the range tequila.
We both tried recently 4-year-old from the single cask. It was aged in octave cask, so obviously a lot of more influence in 4 years. And it was definitely one of the best whiskeys that I've tried for a long time. It was really nice.
Although I love my Caolilas and Ardbegs and Lagavulins and so on and so on and so on. The peaty stuff, as I've said, I am edging more and more towards those kind of sherry cask, sherry butts, Oloroso butts, sweeter, darker in colour, quite Christmassy, heavily fruited in a way, and rich, trying to find my balance, something that has a nice tang to it, but it's also got that kind of sherry cask richness and sweetness. And I have had recently a Manachmore. It's a Speyside, and it's a distillery I didn't really know about. And I had one recently, and it blew me away. I just thought it was absolutely amazing. It was one of the best drams I've ever had in my life. It's impossible to say your dream dram. There's so many good ones.
Any celebrity, dead or alive, Vic, who would it be?
It would be, I was thinking about this. I mean, so many. I'd love to sit down with Jimi Hendrix or someone like that. I mean, like a total hero of mine. Do you know who is a real hero? And I never got to meet him, and he's no longer with us. Rick Mail. I love Rick Mail. The Young Ones, Bottom, Filthy Rich and Cat Flat, all of that stuff. I absolutely. And so, do you know when Rick Mail died, people got in contact with me and said, sorry for your loss. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Because they knew how much he meant to me. So I would love to sit down and laughed my ass off with Rick Mail, because apparently when you met him, if he knew you were a fan, he'd break into the and he would do that character for you. So and make you laugh. Yeah, that would be the celeb that I would have my dream dram with.
Brilliant.
Amazing. And how about 3 sipping songs to kind of set the mood?
Okay, well, 3 sipping songs. One is Jimi Hendrix, actually, and it's off Electric Ladyland, Burning of the Midnight Lamp. It's one of the it's got a kind of gospel-y feel to it. It's obviously very psychedelic because of the guitars. It's a tune. My second one would be a UK funk, soul, jazz band from the 70s, and they're actually back together and playing again, called Simande. You might not know the name, but you'll know at least 2 or 3 of the tunes, because they're just like amazing funk jazz kind of instrumental tracks. The one I'm going to go for is off their first album called Bra is the song. So BRA tune. It's an amazing piece of music. I urge you to search that out if you don't know it, or if you're like, I don't know if I know that one. And the third one would be some reggae. My last one would be the Gladiators, Jamaican band, vocal harmony group. I love them. In fact, I was listening to them last night. They just got sweet harmonies. I don't relate to what they're singing, but I relate to the tune. This particular one that I've chosen is Looks is Deceiving. So it's a kind of don't judge a book by the cover kind of thing. Check that one out. Sweet reggae music. Those are my 3 sipping songs.
Fantastic. And Vic, you're in a band yourself. Give it a quick plug.
I will. Oh, thank you very much. There's 3 of us that record, and then when we play live, there are 5 of us. We're called Check Masses. We put a record out called Nightlife, which we launched basically during the pandemic, which is a complete disaster. But it's a great album, I would say. You can get it on vinyl and stream it and so on. We kind of mix up rock and roll, obviously, a bit of, it's like soul music, rock, twangy guitars, a bit of hip hop in there, a bit of dub reggae. I hope people like it if they search it out. Yeah, the album's called Nightlife, and we put out a remix album with loads of friends of ours remixing us called Nightlife Remixed. Funnily enough, get a bottle of your nice favorite whiskey, stick on Nightlife, follow it with Nightlife Remixed, and then the bottle will be finished before you know it.
Thank you so much, Vic. Thank you for joining us today. It's been amazing.
Yeah, and I'm glad we're still pals after.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Next time we'll treat you with some better whiskey for sure.
Well, let's, next time you're in Edinburgh, and specifically in Leith, give me a shout and we'll hook up and have a few more drams at the Whisky Society or in a nice bar. Yeah, good luck with the podcast. It's great being a guest. Thank you so much for having me.
Whisky Sisters Whisky Fact.
Well, it's only right and proper that today's fact is related to the musical theme. Did you know, Inka, that the song Whiskey in the Jar, made popular by the Dubliners, Thin Lizzy, then Metallica, and I guess lots of other artists, originated in the 17th century?
Yes, I've actually heard this before, but please do tell more.
I thought you might. Whiskey in the Jar is a tale of a highwayman or footpad who, after robbing a military or government official, is betrayed by a woman. So whether she's his wife or sweetheart is not made clear. Various versions of the song take place in Kerry, Cork, Sligo Town and other locations throughout Ireland. Folk music historian Alan Lomax suggests that the song originated in the 17th century and states, the folk of 17th century Britain liked and admired their local highwaymen.
Pretty amazing. I want to know which version is your favorite.
Do you know, I love Metallica's video, but I think I might go Thin Lizzy.
Yeah, you know what? I was going to say, I watched like a documentary on Thin Lizzy, and that's kind of where I learned about the history of the song. But it's very good. But I do love the Metallica one, but I think maybe I've heard it so many times that I quite enjoyed the Thin Lizzy.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? Because we are just like, mad for our Metallica. But you've got to love Thin Lizzy as well. We should have our own band and our own whiskey, Inka.
Yeah, Whisky Sisters.
As long as it's not as crappy as the ones we tried today. Oh gosh, Inka, do you think Vic will speak to us again after those 3 drams?
I know, I feel a little bit embarrassed. They were all pretty bad.
They're 3 of the worst drams I've tried in a while, and I'm super disappointed because I was kind of rooting for the ones linked to musicians.
Yes, especially the Scorpions one. I thought that would be really nice, and it just wasn't quite. Just fall flat, didn't it?
Fall flat, unlike their hair, which is freaking awesome.
Yeah.
I'm Vic Galloway, and you've been listening to the Whisky Sisters podcast.
Thanks for listening. We would love to hear your thoughts on musicians or bands releasing whiskies or other spirits. Have you tried any of them? What did you think? Is it worth it? Is it just a ruse? Let us know. And if you are enjoying what we do here, please subscribe, rate, and review, as this really helps us basically. And please download our episodes too.
Yes, we need you to help us with that. Thank you so much for helping spread the word and grow our podcast. Next week, we are sampling the fairly recent Tomatin Portuguese range. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at whiskysisters.podcast, Twitter at Whisky Sisters, and Facebook at Whisky Sisters Podcast. Good to be back, Inka.
Yes, first episode of the year.
May your glass be full
And your dram on fire.
Da, da, da.